Good evening, everybody. System Chalk here with the 224th episode of Book of Hours, our first run through YouTube playing as the artist. I seem to recall that I was trying to repair some of the old persistent memories that I wanted. In fact, I think I had a list from the other playthrough I was doing. I might take a quick run and see if I can recover those. But our main focus is going to be on leveling up whatever skills I can. That's going to be through acquiring certain books. And then we have some ways to provoke a Numa. However, it may just be a point where I want to start thinking a little bit about the determination that I'll be making. And if it's not clear what I mean by make a determination, it's basically the endgame material, which we've been holding off on for a little while, but I think I'm at the point where I'm sort of ready to, I think I'm kind of ready to start moving forward with that. There's maybe a couple things that I'd like to get done. I think I can probably fill out the Tree of Wisdoms as well as make the determination. But let's see what the day brings. I don't think I'm going to be able to see what book I'm buying. I'll maybe put that in a note. Oh, but we'll get weaving and not working. So if I put that into my... I have a list of notes here. I may have even done this in the previous episode, but of course it is the Monday episode, which means I need to remember where I was. I think I said I might have been using this for Edicts Inviolable. So taking Edicts Inviolable from 7 to 8. Oh, of course, and then because it's a 6 mystery, I don't think I'll be able to do anything else. Okay, let's just pause and unpause for a second here to see what else I'm reading. So we're getting Wrapped in the King. That's for the Earth sign. We are making, an Ascendant Harmony. So I'm repairing the old persistent memories. Here we are reading The Sea Does Not Regret. So I wanted a salt. Presumably that's in preparation for the leveling up Edicts Inviolable. Deoris, not so clear on that one, actually. Instruments of the Heart. We are recovering a stolen secret. So again, more of this points towards leveling up Edicts Inviolable. I am curious, though, whether or not I am... Oh yes, and then I made the mistake of making an old wound rather than the Wormwood Dream. But I am curious whether or not I started to read... No, I did not. Okay, interesting. Should probably read Child's Treasury of Golden Afternoons before too much longer. I'm just trying to think if now might not be the best time for that. Oh, actually, here's a question that will be relevant. So this will give me 2 sharps. So sharps, I believe, is edge and moon. I can maybe verify that. Yeah. So if I were to improve an edge or moon, strings and songs would be an example of something that I would like to level up. So that doesn't help me there. Hill and Hollow, which I think is a similar problem. Oh, that has moon. Okay. So one of the drawbacks here with Hill and Hollow is that, well, actually 5 to 7 isn't so bad. I think that's as close as I'm going to get. The other alternative would be Pentiments and Precursors, but that's Grail and Scale, so it wouldn't be relevant here. Okay. I think that's a good enough reason for me to read Child's Treasury of Golden Afternoons. So this one is a Numa text. Once upon a time, a very bad man encoded very bad secrets into the charming illustrations of a book of charming stories. Wake the pictures and you will see. Oh, actually, you know what? Before I get too eager to read that, I think I can still read this with the consider verb. Right, edge and a conquest. I can master this mystery, enough edge to match mystery edge. So I may have signed myself up for a little bit of trouble just because I'll be doing some fairly demanding leveling, but I think I can see this through. And snow. The world is pale today. The white is west of the world, and winter does not wait forever, Solomon Husher once said. Oh, I seem to have lost my... Sorry, I know this happens... I think this happens each time. I think this might be from switching between the beta branch. But in this case here, I'd rather have that shortcut, so sorry to jump in and out. Alright, Mrs. Kill stands ready to help. You always cheer me up, she says morosely. I've carried a memory like a flambeau safe through the mazes of night. Should probably talk to one of the chickens and feed the stimfling again. But that does leave me behind on talking with Mrs. Kill and getting... I don't know, I still think this is the right way to do it. The Colonel's lessons and the Lionsmith's lessons have been unkindly and reductively rendered as stab versus thump. Invincible audacity, a general says, when I make the right choice, I win. An illuminate says, when I win, I determine which choice was the right one. Natalie Berlot. If you can just give me a second here. Alright, where was I? So the Invisible Audacity is kind of the final destination that I want for this. I don't think there's really much else for me to do with the Practic Garden dummy right now. We're going to be waiting on the Wormwood, or the on the Edicts Martial again. Alright, lots of stuff that just happened. And now it suggests a meal would be welcome. Horizon sight. On a clear autumn day, the story goes, you can see Yeez from the Watchman's Tower. I don't know whether that's true, but on a clear day in Numa, you would see the city unbuilt. Dr. Brian Levinson. Okay, let's unpack all of these. Wrapped in the King, detailed accounts of secret bacchanals and ecstatic dances observed in necropolises and graveyards in southern Europe and Egypt and in Anatolia. The author is a self-confessed ghoul, an eater of buried flesh. He claims to have witnessed the dances while at his feasting. The dances draw from the traditions of the mysteries of the cults of Isis and Sybil, but include both symbolic and literal flayings, and the human heart is always central in the rites. The author punctuates his accounts with queasily sensuous descriptions of his own interrupted feasts. At these greater feasts, a black pig is always crowned as king before its slaying. On this occasion, its heart was weighed in the balance against a knot of feathers, and its skin became a cape for the officiant. Its flesh was left for the crows, but I must confess my interest was not in its carcass, but in the perfumed flesh of the milliner laid fresh in the earth. Okay, on to The Sea Does Not Regret. Eason Fekri, one-time Secretary Salvant to the Curia of the Isle, responsible for the Curia's healing efforts, writes of his experiences in Brandkrug and hints at his travels elsewhere. The sea does not regret the tide, Fekri writes, for when the tide is past, it leaves its traces on the sand, which traces are the sea's memory. Fekri is a keen fisherman and speaks glowingly of the fish suppers of Brandkrug. He also admits that his enthusiasm for the bounty of the sea has altered him, that before he came to Brandkrug he consumed only those things found in the earth. I was the greater thereby, but all of us give up what we were to become what we are. The Instruments of the Heart. Sister Isabel, then precentress of the Abbey Church of St. Brendan's, engages in dialogues with a heart-long of a kind called Dwendrazon that has taken partial possession of her body. The Dwendrazon, like all its kind, usually dwells in the mansis, but can enter the physical world by manifesting as music and take possession of a willing or semi-willing mortal who hears and loves that music, like Isabella. Isabella records her dreams of the High Mansis, where she is accorded the Dwendrazon status and titles. In return, the Dwendrazon enjoys what it calls a Sejura, a welcome oblivion. Our mostly blessing is that we may never cease except in Sejure. There is something more that Isabella refers to as the Sejura Magna, but she laments that her Dwendrazon will not tell her exactly what that might be. Letters from a Fugitive. Lars Westergren, explorer and murderer, spent 7 years escaping justice through his knowledge of byways and shortcuts in the bounds. Throughout that time, he wrote regularly to his daughter, possibly in part to taunt his pursuers. A year with the Legion de Soule, patrolling the bounds until he deserts. A month in the Priory of Captains in Morabun. 7 days, or so he claims, in Ye's Behind the Wave. Cornered at last by his pursuers, Westergren writes that he will attempt the paths of the sun. He doesn't seem sanguine about his chances, and indeed this is his last letter. An editor's note adds that Westergren's whereabouts or end remain unknown, although he was supposedly sighted at the Christmas market in Vienna, the negotiations between the invisible underworld figures that happen each year there, in 1929. De Oris Book 3, in Latin, a 19th century reprint by the indefatigable Nathaniel Darcy Evers of a 14th century Latin translation of a 4th century work. This is usually described as the third volume of De Oris, but Darcy Evers' foreword argues persuasively that it's a substantial reworking by the original author. The lionsmith makes monsters, the colonel has his scars, but the De Oris now insists that neither can truly defeat the other, that they must at some level understand these limits in their strategies, and that their enmity is an eternal engine of the world. Move gingerly while the pain lasts. The Black Book of Brittany, a volume of inklore gifted to St. Brendan's by Brian of Brittany, who was made Earl of Cornwall after the Norman conquest. The black flower lies heavy, but the roots of the watchman's tree run deep, and they may not be hidden forever. The black flower, spoken of as a doom or guise, can be held at bay with the last ink of power, brewed from the pale mixture in the presence of sufficient winter with the arts of containment. Now, this one actually throws me for a loop. I'm not quite sure what the Lantern in Winter does for us here. It makes me think that there was a wintry memory that I was trying to make. Amethyst and the Amethyst Imago lost. An account of an occult romance. A certain Para, son of Aaron, claims to have written this in a single night as part of his initiation into the Damascene branch of the House of Leith. Initiation into the Damascene branch, that order of immortals who rejected their past and future. The laws of the house forbade Matthias to love. The customs of the wood forbade the Imago to remain. So he conjured her a final time. When she had uncovered the shears of Alcapura, and she suffered him to cut the wings from her back, so that she might remain, and he suffered her to cut the parts which hold man's seed, to keep them from the detestable act. This was love in all its blood and joy. We have cast Matthias from the house. In the cradle of the roots, Matthias and the Imago left their names, and though their names were lost, they found their name-day riddles. This we recall in solution and separation, so that in the presence of the moth our memories may become our futures. Do this wisely, in memory of the name and the long who gave up their past, that they might be together forgotten. Yes, there's definitely a few duplicates there that shouldn't have been, but that's life. Okay, let's move on to the Nocturnary. Interesting. So I definitely need to use a memory here. All right. Inconvenient, but I will make it work. Now, let's... I think I'm going to get the animals happy again. So we're going to have a chat with Terrence. Offer this beast my company. Who knows? Perhaps it will offer something in return. Part of this is just because I suspect I have quite a bit already for the leveling up that I'll be doing. In fact, one thing I'll do is I'll just move these all to a lower level. I'd rather not dip into these if I can avoid it. Okay, with Keeper Level Sky, an Ascended Harmony might conjure a Didymos. I believe it should be possible to make a Wind in Waiting with the Mazarine Fife. So let me just see if I... okay, so that's the Didymos. I'm trying to remember which of these does the trick. If it's bells and braziers, I'm in big trouble. So horns and ivories I seem to recall... No. Furs and feathers, maybe. Yeah, but I mean, this is a pretty big... pretty big lift. I would need 7 memory. I feel like there's a better option, but I don't have it in mind. So, and we've got a Hive's Lament, a buzzing in the skull, a song of pragmatic sorrow. Okay, I'm willing to sit on these if I don't have any bright ideas for the next one. I should maybe take a... Let's take a quick look here and make sure I'm not completely losing... Okay, strings and stongs is a better opportunity. Let's just... We'll see what we can put together. Okay, so if I add another 5, I get a Wind in Waiting. Now, the Ascended Harmony doesn't help me here, but the Didymos does. So it's a little bit of a shame just because the Didymos is going to take some effort to get back. But we do have the Ascended Harmony, so let's just get that so that we have it out of the way. I'm also thinking maybe a... I don't want to get too reckless with this, but... settle on this for now. Okay, so we've got our egg. That will be used to feed the Stimfling. So actually, with that in mind, let's... what can I afford to give up? Still have the metal. So satisfy the creature's appetite. Food will make a hungry beast or a wild one cooperative. We already have the grapes to feed the chicken. All right. A child's treasury of golden afternoons. Once upon a time, a very bad man encoded very bad secrets into the charming illustrations of a book of charming stories. Wake the pictures and you will see. This book houses a Newman, a truth so powerful it can perhaps believe itself. Lord Jacob Gristwood, surgeon, ethnologist, philanthropist. There is no proof he ever kept children. So let's try that again. There is no proof that he ever kept children in hutches beneath his bed. There's no proof he vivisected cats at dinner with his penknife. The Suppression Bureau keeps its secrets. Here's your paint, whispered the wolf to the pale girl. Here is your knife for scraping, and here is your face. So 2 sharps lessons. we'll try and make the most of those. And our final pneuma, a merciless alteration. I'm going to enter that into my notes. A fundamental flaw, the irresistible shortcut, the hate that heats, the change that mars, the scar that opens. These are the foulest histories. Any librarian can use this to establish a history and complete the game, but the artist and the archaeologist can win a particular victory. So ultimately, I have, this is going to be one of two choices that I have in terms of getting a specific ending for the artist. There's either the Irresistible Feast, which has Edge, Grail, and Nectar, or I can go for the Merciless Alteration, which I'm just going to make the note for here. And that would be Edge, Forge, or Grail. So one way of potentially thinking of this would be that Forge is one of the... Forge and Nectar would be sort of the differentiating feature of the two specific Newman. Alternatively, I can also say, for the determination, you pick one of the principles. Although it is the combination, I believe, of the specific Newman and the principle. But just as a shorthand, it may be helpful for me to think of that as the defining characteristic between my two options. So we will be dealing with that in a moment. Actually, okay, so there's one thing I'm not 100% clear on, and I'd kind of like to test that. So let's see if we can do something with metal. Okay. So right now it doesn't look like much, right? I'm just back to my normal routine. So if I add the book, nothing much there, but now we have the Orpiment Exultant. So the Incastum Terminale of the fourth history, it's the incandescent orange of Forge, one ingredient. It's been, the Incastum Terminale of the fourth history, it's the incandescent orange of Forge, one ingredient. It's been, as it were, long rumored, is the blood of candescence. Certain Masonic and related traditions venerate what they call OE. Use an Incastum ink with your journal to make determinations and record histories. If the hours listen, the world changes. So this is the interesting one here, right? We're not actually making... we're not making the determination yet, I don't believe. I should maybe just double check how this works. It's been a while since I've done one of these. I would need 25, right. So I would either need to level up my metal by one more, or I would need to make the determination. But this is a part. So what is the difference between determinations? Actually, there's one thing I can do, Sky. I think Sky I'm at I have a slight disadvantage for. Okay, so make a determination. Red, the first flower. The Watchman's Tree is the covenant that forbids knowledge to mortals, but permits it in the covenant houses of the tree, like Brankrug Isle. The red flower of Calyptra, the fire fueled by truth, was its first defense. Fire consumes knowledge, but fire also gives light. The tree is rooted in paradox. Adds Forge and Rose to your journal, replaces any other first flower determination. Adding determinations to your journal makes it first possible and then easier to write a matching history. So this is kind of where the game has been going for a while. It may not necessarily be obvious from some of the texts. I do think some of the familiarity... I do think familiarity with Weather Factory's games, not even necessarily in the sense of the lore, but in sense of the idea of being able to sort of read between the lines and sort of see where things are going, has sort of led us to this place. So there are some secret letters inside the game. We may actually read them as part of maybe an epilogue or something like that. But my basic read on this is that the librarian has a very special role in the world of the secret histories. That they don't just sort of maintain something like the Library of the Watchman's Tree, but that they have a role and sort of the knowledge to make recommendations to the hours in terms of history. And in fact, you have some letters inside of the additional material that Weather Factory has put out, both on the internet and also on the on their in the secret folder for the game. There's sort of an indication of someone who sort of thinks that this responsibility or this power is something that can sort of be used to alter the fabric of reality, that sort of they want to achieve something and someone's sort of discouraging them from thinking of it that way. And so in this particular case here, we have, we've seen references to the three flowers, right? The red, white, and black flowers. So in this case here, we are sort of making a determination specifically on what the first flower is. In this case, this is the one for the red flower, but we actually have other alternatives. And I imagine that I'm actually going to start making some notes along these lines in terms of what they do. So with 20 forge, that gives me forge and rose. So I'm not ruling this out. However, I would need to make a replacement orpiment exultant if I wanted to use it for that. So what I can also do here is I can take a look at the other aspects that I'm interested in, and we can maybe see what edge and grail provide. So I believe, yeah, Nillikant gives me the edge. Of course, wrong skill. All right, make a determination. Speech, the sword. Language is a weapon. With language, we breach the mansis. Without language, we could not have fought wars. Without language, we would still be apes, beetles, stone. Adds edge and grail to your journal. Replaces any other speech determination. Adding determinations to your journal makes it first possible, then easier to write the matching history. Okay, so just one more second here. So 20 edge. And then finally, we'll take a look at the Grail one. Oop. I think it's Maricat is the Grail one. Yes. All right, and make a determination on the oldest. The red Grail gives life, the Grail takes life, the Grail is not sated. The Grail, who disdains contradiction, is the oldest hour that persists. Any that seem older are subsumed eventually in the Grail's tides. Adds Grail and Nectar to your journal, replaces any other oldest determination. Adding determinations to your journal makes it possible and then easier to write a matching history. So one practical matter here would be to go for Grail the oldest, Speech the sword, and Forge the first flower, simply because those all provide aspects in line with one of the two Newman that would be my final determination. But I'm actually not in a particular hurry to do any of this because I realize I'm close to the end of the episode, so I'm just going to take a couple notes here. Sorry, my pencil's being disagreeable. So yeah, this is the this is the first step towards sort of the ending. I did sort of actually, there is one thing I'm slightly curious on, which would be whether or not I could do, whether or not I could actually write the history if I used my Arab Plus. Because, of course, with the base skills, you don't have enough in terms of the aspects. But I think once you have an upgraded element of the soul, you should be able to turn, you should have enough to write the history. But I don't know if it locks it behind making a determination. But in any case, as sort of we've been seeing here, there are some sort of contradictions or things that you need to sort out in terms of your own understanding in terms of the Tree of Wisdoms. Now that I've kind of played the game to the end, I sort of have this idea that the Tree of Wisdoms probably says a little bit more about you in terms of what you think is sort of the primary or the more fundamental aspect of these various skills. Whereas the determination probably has a little bit more in terms of working out the contradictions between the histories and sort of pushing things forward. So it's one of the reasons why I'm always a little careful to to make some adjustments to my or it's always a little careful before I write something in my journal. Because eventually we are going to submit this to the Hours, petition the Hours for a certain state of the world. And obviously, when we're describing the fundamental flaw, the irresistible shortcut, the hate that heats, the change that mars, the scar that opens, these are the foulest histories. Clearly, we are describing something that's not necessarily positive. So I may want to be careful in terms of exactly what I let happen. But of course, that is something that we will probably get done this week. Again, we've got a fair amount that we still need to get through, but I think we're at the point now where we're going to want to start making some more of the Incastum Terminale, and specifically using them to make some changes to our journal. But all of that will be happening later on in the week. Thank you very much for watching. I'll be off on Tuesday as usual, but we'll be back on Wednesday to write some things in books. Until then, take care.